What's going on, Boston Celtics fans? Welcome into Celtics Today by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Allie Barefoot, and that right there is the updated list of the AllStar voting. Of course, this does go on until January 20th, but there are several Boston Celtics names that are on here. So on today's show, we want to break down our case for the entire starting five of the Boston Celtics who have made an appearance once or twice on this list. So I think before we start, all-star appearances for a team like this should not be end-all, be-all. I know every single player on this team right now just wants banner 18. You can ask any of them. I'm sure they have that exact answer. However, there could also be some snubs on this all-star list. Of course, all five Celtics probably won't get on it. They could, but probably won't, but it'll add a little bit of fuel to the fire, perhaps under a Jaylen Brown or a Jrue Holiday or a Kristaps or a Derrick White's ass that can help them for the rest of the season. Speaking of the rest of the season, there's a long way to go, and I do not want to talk about the loss last night to the Milwaukee Bucks. That was not their best game, but also wasn't the C's top performance. Why? Because their top performance came the night before that in overtime against Minnesota Timberwolves, going up against number two team in the NBA Eastern Conference after a back-to-back performance like that. It's hard. They didn't even play the entire second half. It's a long season. Not worried about it. As always, go Celtics. So, like I said, back to business. The case for the All-Stars. Of course, we got to start with the man himself talking about Jayson Tatum, and the case isn't going to be that heavy because I think we already know what Jayson Tatum is capable of. He's been an All-Star in the past. I mean, he's a lock, if I do say so myself. Let him cook. Jayson Tatum is the difference maker on this team. You can make a defense for Kristaps Porzingis or Jaylen Brown, but it really is Jayson Tatum because look at what he did single-handedly against the Timberwolves. In my opinion, the best game the Celtics have played all year long. 45 points, 4 rebounds, 13 for 26 from the field, and 6 for 11 from the three. Not to even mention, he helped beat the Minnesota Timberwolves in overtime with a dagger 3 and a nice putback 2. So look, that was an MVP-defining performance in one of the toughest games of the Celtics season so far, and he deserves to be in that conversation. He was in the conversation last year. He was in the final 5 of voting, and I understand there's always going to be the Giannis and the Jokic and the Embiids of the world, but Jayson Tatum is helping the Celtics be the best team in the Eastern Conference and possibly the NBA this season. So it's time to give him his flowers when they're due. Let's get some buzz on Jayson Tatum for MVP right now. Spam hashtag JT for MVP in the comments below. Put it out on your Twitter, but more importantly, if you share this video, make sure you add that hashtag in there. We're starting this before the MVP voting comes out and the All-Star voting is closed. But first, type it in the comments. Hashtag JT for MVP while I bring up his right-hand man, Jaylen Brown, the duo of the Jays. They were phenomenal against the Pacers over the weekend. They were even better against the Timberwolves 2 nights ago. And I think that means it's time to start talking about Jaylen Brown a little bit more in this All-Star voting conversation. Why? Because the last 3 games, despite the Milwaukee Bucks loss, which we do not want to talk about, he dropped 35, 31, and 40 points in those 3 games. And if you look at what he's been doing the last 4 seasons, 22.7 points per game. This is more than some of the number ones on teams out there. 5 rebounds per game. He hasn't always been the finest glass cleaner on the Celtics, but that's all right. 48% from the field is fine. 34% from the three-point line. It's not great for JB, but he's been taking less shots since 2024. So I think that three-point percentage will go up once he starts realizing that, hey, I'm just as useful driving to the basket and pulling those defenders down than I am shooting a three-point shot with 20 seconds left on the shot clock. But we all know what JB is capable of doing, and he's on the road to another all-star type of year. Chris Forsberg also tweeted out and said among all high-volume defenders, 10-plus field goals defended per game, Jaylen Brown ranked second in field goal percentage differential, holding opponents to 6.8% below expected per NBA tracking. He's number 1 in defensive field goal percentages, 40.5 among that same group. He's doing work that's not going to show up on the box scores every single night. Hence, this stat right here. These are advanced stats that the real NBA fan is going to find and dig, especially like Chris Forsberg, who is a reporter for the Boston Celtics. So overall, while JT may always come out with the most points that night, what JB is doing to help the defense night in and night out is going to play off on their journey to banner 18, which is why I think that unfortunately, I don't know how much advanced stats the All-Star voting goes into. I think that he's still playing a high level of basketball right now. And my case for Brown and Smitty's case for Brown is Jaylen Brown has played a level of two-way consistency in and out of the box score that's deserving of an All-Star bid. How far they want to go in that out-of-box score type of category is up to them. But nonetheless, he's got Smitty and I's vote. Next, I'm going to break down the case for KP, Derrick White, and Jrue Holiday because the Celtics starting five is rolling. But before that, I want to make sure you guys are ready for your next Boston Celtics game in TD Garden by wearing the freshest gear that's currently out there. Our friends at Fanatics had this great deal going on that you can get using this link right here below, chatsports.com/Celtics shirt. And it's this nice little army green going on right now. I love the Boston Celtics green. Nothing is prettier to me. But this shirt right here just screams dominance. I love this t-shirt. This is what I would be wearing if I was going to a TD Garden. I'd put a nice white long sleeve on underneath it, maybe even a Boston Celtics beanie, and I would rock them the entire game. If you guys want to have the freshest gear for the Boston Celtics on their road to Banner 18, it's on sale for $25 today. All you guys have to do is go to chatsports.com/Celtics t-shirt. Make sure you use this link below because that's what's going to get you the deal. That's what our friends at Fanatics have cooked up, and we want to make sure that you guys are looking good at your next Celtics game. Speaking of looking good at the Celtics game, let's talk about Kristaps Porzingis and how he has looked good in this trio for the Boston Celtics of JT, JB, and KP. You got to think, he just came from the Wizards, not the best organization, but he has turned things around for his career and for his All-Star caliber season with this year in the Boston Celtics. Why? Because he's nearly a 20-point scorer per game, 7 rebounds per game. Just to put in perspective, the center for the Warriors, Kevon Looney, is averaging 7.9 rebounds per game. He's right there with all the other centers. 54% from the field, 32% from the three-point line. Not the best, but hey, 7'3". He can only be so unicorn-like in all of his game. But in reality, Mark D'Amico, he said wholeheartedly because Porzingis has been better than Bam and Randall all season long, and his team has been much better all season long, KP currently leads them both in the record, offensive rating, defensive rating, net rating, all of the ratings, blocks per game. I mean, he's just dominating these categories, going up against some of the top bigs in not only the Eastern Conference, in my opinion, in the Western Conference as well. And all that with a much lower usage rate. The Celtics beat the Timberwolves in overtime without Kristaps Porzingis, and I guarantee you if KP's in that ballgame, it's much different. My case for Porzingis here is that KP is efficient, he helps on the offense, he runs cleaner, and consistently performs in big spots. We've seen him hit daggers in game-defining moments from a three-point line. We've also seen him make the dominant blocks down below in the same type of settings. Numbers suggest that he's better than the competition. And I think if I want an all-star level team, in my center position, I would definitely have Kristaps Porzingis in the top 3, in all honesty. But who's the all-star here? Because KP can be used power forward, Celtics center position right now for the C's. You said what? That's fair. Smitty's over here saying, he could always get snubbed for a guy like Julius Randle. Like we said at the beginning of the video, if he does get snubbed, then put some fire under his butt and let's get it going. But I want to see what you guys have to say. Type KP for Kristaps Porzingis. Type JR for Julius Randle. While I bring up the bald-headed god, Derrick White, who has been somehow 10 times better than last season, I think it's because he got a haircut. Full honesty. But look, we've known this about D. White. He is elite defensively. That's why he's been an all-NBA defensive player. But this season is different, man. Not just the haircut, but on offense as well. I mean, he does look cleaner with the haircut, but let's actually break down. He's just becoming a dual threat. He's a threat on defense. He's a threat on offense. I have seen Derrick White help the Celtics get out of a scoring drought many a times this season when JT and JB cannot. Here's my thing, though. As efficient as he is, there are numerous guards in this league that will look better on a box score because Derrick White isn't the number one on a Boston Celtics team. He's not the number one resource, unfortunately, but we're happy to have him. So with that being said, that's why I think he could get snubbed here. But overall, if he doesn't even get the All-Star nomination this year, if he doesn't get in the All-Star team, I've loved everything I have seen from Derrick White for the Celtics, and it's a long season ahead. So our case for White is that he's gotten better every year, and he's shown the ability to put up All-Star points, totals if needed, just doesn't get that spot every single night, which is what we said. He's not going to be a number one. He's not going to be a Trae Young. He's not going to be a Shea Alexander. So unfortunately, when you are putting up these numbers night in and night out, he's putting up 30 just like Tatum is going up against teams like the 76ers. It's tough when there's that many in that position. So we'll have to wait and see what Derrick White does. But like I said, fuel to the fire. Last but not least, Jrue Holiday, the newest Celtic on the starting five. Jrue Holiday has had some inconsistent moments this year. I'm going to be just upfront. I have loved some moments I've seen from Jrue Holiday on the defensive side. On the offensive side is where he's not my favorite in this starting five for an all-star level player. But Jrue Holiday has helped the Celtics in many, many categories. And if you look at his stats through 35 games, I think that overall, we said this against the Minnesota Timberwolves, on defense, it's where he makes a difference. On offense, it's going to take a little bit of time. But he's got so many offensive weapons in the starting five right now that you may not need him to be an offensive threat. You need him to be an on-ball defender and need him to be in the right spot when the Celtics need him. So through 34 games, he's averaging 12 points. He's got 5 rebounds. The almost 5 assists is beautiful. I'll take that any game over 10 points. 45.7% from the field. It's not terrible. 40% from the three-point line is great. Jrue Holiday has taken more three-point shots in the last few games, which I haven't loved. But I think this case for Holiday is a little bit harder than the other 4 starters, to be honest. There isn't really a case on offense for Jrue Holiday. I mean, you can keep voting and you can keep putting it in there. And I'm all for having a starting 5 for the Boston Celtics being the all-star. But all-defensive team, a shoo-in, a lock. I love him on defense. An all-star, maybe not. But you don't need all-star numbers from Jrue. That's not why Brad Stevens went out in the offseason and got him. He's filling a hole that Marcus Smart used to cover on defense, in my opinion. Jrue Holiday is filling the numbers, and he's doing stuff off the box score, which is going to help a lot more down the road than getting an all-star nomination this year, to be honest. But how many all-stars will Boston have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Put it down in the comments below. Mine is going to be 3. I'm going to do the trio. I'm going to do JT, JB, and KP. I think there's too many guards, but Derrick White out there. And Jrue Holiday is an all-defensive player through and through. NBA all-defensive player. Not so much an all-star. But I want to hear from you guys. It's why we talk to you guys. That's why we make these videos. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. While you guys are at it, hit that sub button. We're going to be live for 3 Boston Celtics games next week. You guys do not want to miss these live shows. So if you haven't already, hit that sub button for me.